Putin did was very diplomatic. He said, yes, I agree with that. We need a 30-day ceasefire, but there are a few problems. Why don't we start off with a ceasefire where we won't attack each other's energy infrastructure? Which is what Zelensky... There was discussion about this previously. But what happened was, as soon as it was about to come... they were about to put in place, because it's been discussed in Qatar, that they were going to put in a place where we won't be attacking each other's energy infrastructure, and both sides had kind of agreed to it. And then Zelensky invaded Kursk. So that was the end of that. And now, of course, Putin's put it back in his court. Let's have a 30-day ceasefire on energy infrastructure. And immediately, Zelensky attacked an oil refinery.
Now, talking about... this is a total and utter tangent, but talking about attacks on energy infrastructure, Heathrow Airport, I don't know whether it was an attack, but something seems to have happened. Rather bizarre. Is this just a spontaneous fire? Is it possible that this is some sort of sabotage?
Counter-terrorism police... presumably Met counter-terrorism police are leading the investigation.
Well, why don't the fire brigade lead the investigation? Because we know the counter-terror police often find things, a bit like the FBI, that they're looking for.
Well, and of course, the suggestion that the Russians may have carried this out, it might... I put this to you, Tony, maybe MI5 did it, to put the blame on the Russians. That sounds far-fetched, but look at Skripal. Look at we're quite capable. Our intelligence services murdered Berezovsky, not the Russians. The coroner said that Berezovsky was definitely murdered, or definitely not suicide, and nobody suggested it was the Russians who murdered him.
There are all
His family believe it was MI6 that murdered him.
There are all sorts of interesting aspects to this thing that's happened today. First of all, it's a massive national humiliation, the idea that you can't even have a backup generator to make sure that if you have a problem with your power supply, your whole national airport with something like 500,000 people, I don't know, it's about 300,000 a day going through Heathrow. That's an absolute disaster if your infrastructure is so badly managed that's going to happen. You've also got, of course, a very live protest movement, extremely upset and annoyed about the extension of the runways at Heathrow, who will be maybe rather happy to see, there's no planes here today, and they've got a bit of a problem with actually opening their airport. Apparently, some of the flights are just resuming, and they hope to have full operation tomorrow. But it is extraordinary that a fire in a substation should shut the entire place down.
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about how these things work to have a strong opinion.
You must have heard of backup generators.
Well, yes. I mean, I remember flying in from Yugoslavia once years ago, and I just got off the plane, and then the IRA actually dropped a mortar onto the runway I'd just come off on, and of course then they had to close the airport. But I was lucky enough; I'd just come through with my passport.
The other thing is that the police have
get on the
extraordinary thing about today is that the police have taken it all very, very seriously, and they've got some sort of massive cordon around it. The trains are not allowed to go to Heathrow. So even if you are, it'd be brilliant. I mean, I don't know if people have managed to do this, people who were actually at Heathrow Airport, to phone in, and many of them were saying, well, the lights are still on here, there's plenty of power here. So the whole thing could possibly have a PSYOP aspect to it.
Well, I think we're running ahead of ourselves here. Even the British authorities are saying that although the anti-terrorist police are looking into it, that there is no evidence at this stage.
At the moment, there might be in the future. Could Putin take out that substation?
Well, I mean, don't forget that the British intelligence services working with the SBU have been doing exactly this kind of sabotage inside Russia. There've been all sorts
Maybe they'll find a Russian passport next to the substation.
Yeah, well, also, of course, in Lithuania, the government there is saying that the burning down of an IKEA warehouse was carried out by the evil Russians. And as you can imagine, Putin's sitting in the Kremlin rubbing his hands going, ha ha ha, we've got their IKEA warehouse. Ha. It's an absurdity, really. But of course, there is stay-behind networks inside Russia which are carrying out sabotage. The FSB will be very well aware of this. And of course, the British have been pushing this line. Dugin's daughter was assassinated.
So we've got four possibilities here. We've got coincidence, accident, we've got Putin, we've got Extinction Rebellion, and we've got MI5. Who do you think is at top of the list?
Accident, Tony, I'm afraid.
That's all right. Who's next on the list, then?
Well,
of those three,
I think the
Putin, Extinction Rebellion,
presumably would have the capability to do something like that if they wanted to do it. And there's been a suggestion by intelligence services all over the Western world that they're doing things like this. They're attacking.
Okay, so
there was supposedly
Extinction Rebellion aside, also remember, of course, they would be infiltrated and have psyopers within there. Do you think it's more like the MI5 or Putin?
If Putin wanted to, I mean, when Skripal was attacked, Putin rather unwisely said, look, if we wanted to kill Skripal, we'd kill him, and you wouldn't know that we'd done it. So this is all silly. Yeah? Which was a fair enough comment. If the Russian intelligence services wanted to blow up that, they could probably do it. But then the British intelligence services are operating in Russia and openly boasting that they are doing things like that.
So do you think...
We're actually saying, yes, we've got all sorts of stay-behind networks inside Russia, and they're blowing things up and doing things.
Do you think Putin cares what the West thinks about whether he'll do a ceasefire? Because obviously he's going to get a lot more people thinking, well, this Putin guy isn't so bad if he just does a ceasefire.